Women Lead. First of all, I like the title. I like the name of the group, Leading Through Empowerment, Affiliations, and Development. And as hopefully you'll see as I go through my remarks today, I very much believe in the empowerment that can be gained through exposure to and working with and working through women. And I commend you for being smart enough to get it at a young age, because getting the luxury to either hear speakers or work within other groups such as this is the type of synergy that's really needed for long-term success, I very much believe. I'm honored to stand before you today, and I really thank you for taking the time. Before I momentarily address my life journey, I'm going to preface it with the following statements. Rather candidly, I was not the smartest, not the most popular, not the thinnest to the degree that's even relevant at all in our society, sometimes that is, or the wealthiest. However, as I look back on my trajectory, and I can, afterwards, if you're interested, I can send you an email with the work I've done. I also wear very large jewelry, and probably at this point I should take this off. But upon reflection, the situation for me is that I think, like most, if not all of you in the room, and part why you're here, I've always had what I consider some P's that are essential for success, really for excellence, and I'll differentiate between the two afterwards. One is passion, and really it's not your typical passion in that, well, I'm passionate about flowers or a particular, it's really a hunger and a drive. And I'll focus on that a bit later. There's passion. There's preparation. You guys are doing it here, just making the decision to be here. Some of you are already here taking notes. Don't need to, but just observation. Preparation, perspiration. As you will see, every step of the way you're experiencing now, it's an inordinate amount of work. And anyone else that tells you otherwise, it's just not right, because that's what it takes. Perspiration, persistence, perseverance, perspective, and I do think the perspective is important, and the older you get, the more perspective you have. So you'll benefit from that, looking back on your experiences. Panache. Now panache, I'll go through that, but that's your brand. That's what makes you unique. As Professor Montgomery from HBS would say, what's that special dish you bring to the table? And then the last one, which I will save till the bitter end of my remarks to discuss, is power. That, for some, particularly among women, is ostensibly a dirty word. I don't think it's a dirty word. I think it's something that we as women need to get comfortable with and aim for and accomplish. So I'll go through those. My outline, first I'll give you a little bit about my life journey, my triad of passions. I really want to discuss with you guys current events, our present and our global responsibility as empowered women. I want to give you what I think are the best of times and the worst of times. My apology to Charles Dickens. And then I'm going to give you at least a proposal for a recipe for success, and then my suggestion for you to make it what's going to be your recipes for success. Now, I'm blessed beyond belief. I'm an immigrant. I came here not quite 10. My father made $5,000 a year, raising 5 children, so mom and dad, 5 children came. We had 14 suitcases and a big tree. All of us today, my brothers and sisters, we all have postgraduate education. Having chosen medicine or law really wasn't too much of a choice. We didn't have much of a choice. You're either a lawyer or a doctor in my family. I wholeheartedly believe that education is the great equalizer in this country, and I'm a product. I was able to go to Rice and law school on full academic scholarships. At Rice, I was Phi Beta Kappa. When I was in law school, I was first in my class. I figured out I had to do it. Education. That was my route. Today, I live like you in Houston. What is it about Houston? It's the spirit of empathy, entrepreneurship, egalitarianism, energy, and ethnic diversity, obviously represented here today, which in and of itself is fascinating. And it's perhaps it's indicative of what Rice is about, or perhaps it's also indicative of the drive among women. I love to see this ethnic diversity here present. Now, one little great tidbit about Houston, as empowered woman, you'll appreciate this. It's a city that was the landmark, it is the landmark for the history of the feminist movement. Gloria Steinman is coming back to Houston in April to speak to a group that actually was a keynote speaker several years ago to about 800 women. And Gloria Steinman talks about the fact that herself, Houston and all the events surrounding it in the 1970s became a landmark in personal history. Not just in the women's movement, but for her, she thinks about this, was it before or after Houston? So what's fascinating is Houston really has been at the crux of tremendous things for women. In terms of how it would characterize my interest and my love, I always talk about being caffeinated and oxygenated. It's true. The caffeine, evident. I actually do believe in better multitasking skills through massive caffeine consumption. I do. I don't drink, I don't smoke, but I drink plenty of coffee, maybe too much. And I believe in the oxygenated part. What's that? That's whatever it takes when you get out of bed to make the decision that, you know what, my glass is going to be half full. Most people's lives are not easy. Some are clearly harder than others. But you've got to make the decision that you are just oxygenated with life, what you as a female can do, and what you in return can give back and deliver. I believe in the preparation, we talked about it, and I surmise many of you guys are doing. And one of my favorite quotations is, first we get better grades than the boys, then we take their jobs. And the question is keeping them, and I'll go back to that. Many years ago, when I remember I started practicing law, my three brothers were 5 brothers and sisters, as I mentioned at the beginning. My 3 brothers wrote on this plywood, I'll never forget it, I still have it as one of my deal toys in my office. And it says, a career woman has to look like a lady, act like a man, and work like a dog. All 3 P's are there: preparation, persistence, and perspiration. You've heard well-behaved women rarely make history. I believe in shaking it up. We'll go back to this. What's your brand? Your panache. Then I believe in the issue of power. Let me briefly mention that, and I'll go back to it. With success that you will have, I'm confident. The fact that you even made the decision to come here, you could be going back to your room and studying, there's no doubt, I get it. But the mere fact that you opted to come here means you get it. And I am confident you will be successful. That's what women that succeed do. They listen, they learn, they observe, they take in whatever makes sense for them to take in. The power issue. Business and power go hand in hand. Business comes first. You must have someone to promote you, to share the opportunities with you. Otherwise, obtaining real power is not easily going to happen. Think about that when you begin your profession, and why it's important to network and do exactly what you're able to do through this group. A couple of anecdotes about how I approach life. At the end, I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. I've said it and I mean it. For the harder I work, the more I live. Happiness, getting back to the oxygenated and your glass half full when you get out of bed. Happiness is not an accident, nor is it something you wish for. It's something you need to design. And life should not be about the surface at any level. Really think of yourself, and we'll go back to that. Let me tell you a little bit about my triad of passions, my profession, my community, and my family. Now, as I try to balance them, you've heard the perennial conundrum and dialogue and diatribe or debate, however you want to term it. There really is not an easy balance. I don't think it's really a balance at all. You may be able to somewhat balance right now, but as you will see, if you get the luxury to have a profession, which I surmise you will, and stay in the game and do well, and if you at some point decide that having kids is something that's in your future and your interest, and giving back and doing everything, I've got 3 children, I'll touch upon that in a minute, it is absolutely a daily conundrum as to what you're going to prioritize. Probably moment by moment. I balance in quotations. It's not a symmetry. It is not symmetry. It's asymmetry. And on a daily basis, you're going to prioritize as necessary. And then you're going to outsource what your non-core functions are. And that'll come with time. And maybe in 15, 20 years, remember, Sophia did say that. I didn't know what she meant. I get it now. But at some point, you do have to outsource your non-core functions. Profession, education, education, education. We talked about that. Professor Kleinberg, which I surmise some of you have had, if not know who he is. I like this, and he's absolutely right. in this new and increasingly unequal knowledge-based economy, what you earn depends on what you've learned. And obviously you're at the right place. In preparation for this speech, I'm a voracious reader, always just trying to make sure when I deliver remarks, I'm at least cognizant of what people are saying. Men, women that are talking about this issue or just success and leadership generally. In a great piece in the New York Times, January 30th, Thomas Friedman, who authored The World is Flat, among other things, reiterated what we all know, but it's good to be reminded of. What was the title of his article? It's PQ and CQ as much as IQ, i.e. the passion quotient, the curiosity quotient, as much as the intelligent quotient. And the era that we're living in should not be and cannot be, yes, we can. It needs to be, yes, you can, and yes, you must. I thought that was interesting. Obviously, utilizing some of the President Obama's administrations and thought processes. That said, I think you get the bigger message, particularly about the passion quotient and the curiosity quotient. For 21 years, I've handled business litigation across the country, and I consult with international entrepreneurs that come in and have matters in the United States. I could give a whole speech about my career, but I'm happy to answer questions, particularly if anyone afterwards is interested in law school. I'm absolutely happy to speak with you afterwards. I've been a partner at a big New York firm, and when I joined this firm, there's 125 lawyers, I came in as their first female partner, and for the first almost 25 years of existence, they didn't have a female partner. So there's a lot of issues and a lot of work to be done, but it's good to be in a great place. Bottom line, I'll touch upon this only momentarily because of the aspect that I talked about, business and power. It truly is, and that part of if you were to ask me, truly part of my recipe for excellence, if not success, would be in part, I needed, in order to have the freedom I have, I have a 17-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 9-year-old. I needed to bring in my own business. I have to bring my own business and also feed, i.e. give other work to several other lawyers at the firm. The more work I bring in, the more flexibility I have. I can't even remember the last time anyone's asked me where I am, what I'm doing, where I'm going. I don't know, maybe 15 more years or more. It's because I deliver the work. And how do you do that? As you go forward, you'll see part of what I felt like I've had to do is along the way, give a large number of speeches. I've given, just on legal issues alone, over 110 speeches, and I've authored over 70 publications. And I was a professor in law school for just a semester, and was asked to do tenure track, but I said I cannot do that. But I try to write as often as I can. There has to be something to differentiate yourself, and you guys will see this as you go in your respective careers. I'll give you an example. There are 20,000 plus lawyers in Harris County and almost 90,000 lawyers in Texas. When I got the top 40 under 40 lawyers in the state of Texas many years ago, it was mostly men. I was the only female that got it that was in a for-profit world. Or when I got Texas Super Lawyer, it is hard to differentiate yourself, and you have to, more than anything, outwork the next person, or many more people. That's part of the perspiration. But I could talk at length about that. I've also just been asked to be, and it's my understanding it may be the first female editor asked by ALM, which is the largest publication of legal journals and books in the country, to be an author of the Texas Business Treatise, which is going to be the guide to business litigation in Texas. And I will be the editor and put together a group of authors for about an 800-page book that I will be working on. So that's the profession, very much of a passion of mine, and it needs to be. As I know some of you in the room, and I know part of your career interests and tracks, whatever it may be, you need to really be in it for the long haul, because that is what it's going to take. Community. That's another of my triads. For me, I believe you're a more effective advocate, you're a more effective professional, and a more effective human being if you give back along the way. For me personally, I started by letting you know my life journey. I've been inordinately blessed. I feel like I have no choice. For me, I'm paying rent, and I've got to do it by the service I render and to pay it forward. I tried very hard early on in my career to get exposed to what it takes to then try to pay it forward, to then chair organizations or chair events to raise money for causes that matter to me. So when I was asked to do things like Leadership Houston, Leadership Texas, or Leadership America, or American Leadership Forum, all things that you will one day get the luxury of being invited to, what happens then is you get exposed to what ostensibly leading with a moral compass means and what you can do. And then, more likely than not, you'll be approached about serving on boards. I've served on more than 15 boards along the way. One of my favorites is Girls Inc. of Greater Houston, where I met some of the ladies present here today, which, by the way, I surmise were rock stars are rock stars here and were rock stars when I met them. Whether it's Girls Inc., whether it's the Mexican Bar, whether it's the Museum of Fine Arts, where I'm a trustee and came up with and inaugurated the first Latin American gala, which now raises over $1 million for the museum each time we have the gala. Theater Under the Stars, Memorial Herman System, a litany of other groups. I felt along the way that I needed to give back and also learn by getting exposed. I also serve on the United Way, where we give over $50 million a year to about 70 partners that we have across town and across parts of the state of Texas. I do think, and I encourage you to participate and get involved, because you truly learn by being exposed to different people, different issues, different leadership styles, and you truly do not know. You want to be in the game, you want to be noted, and you want to be counted, but that means you have to start. And the mere fact that you're here, you cared enough to want to hear at least one other woman's story. But you will one day have your own story to create and relate. Family, I mentioned it. I'll just give you just a tiny bit on the thoughts of family. Whether you ultimately have children, don't have children, mentor others, adopt or otherwise, even at this stage of the game for you, I really believe that it's important to find some sort of a home base. It need not be a traditional source of a mother, father, stepfather, or even a single parent or no parents at all. Whoever it is, or someone that you really can periodically just stop, reflect, and in essence get your ammunition, your energy, your sustenance pack to go back at it. There was a great, when I did American Leadership Forum, we had to do this 1 week outward bound experience, and we had to read this book called Synchronicity, The Inner Path of Leadership. And I thought it was well done. In the book it talks about if you want to make a peak climb, you've got to have a good base camp, a place where there's shelter and provisions, so you can receive the nurture and rest before you venture forward again to seek another summit. And that makes complete sense. We have to do what it takes to just re-energize, whatever it may be, maybe your own downtime. But more anything than that, it's important to just have something or someone that you can just take it on in, take a step back, assess what's just transpired, and move forward. And really find your base and return as often as you need to stay needed and really grounded. Now, with regard to being grounded, I could do a whole speech on the perennial balance of having 3 children and trying to stay in the game at this level. I also was recruited, as Leanna knows, several years ago and married to be part of a show that now appears on PBS and Channel 11 and I think 5 other cities in Texas, called Latina Voices Smart Talk. And so if you guys are ever bored one night, you can go to www.latinavoices.com and there's more than 50 shows you can see. But it is, for me, in terms of what I want to accomplish, it is the perennial thought process about what I'm doing, what am I not doing, and always being available at the same time for the kids. I could tell you, I've negotiated a global class settlement involving $500 million, and then had to make sure that I had 2 cell phones with me. One of it rang, and it was one of my kids that had just had a bad situation wasn't feeling well, was having something, to be able to just at least pick up the phone and say, what do you need? Always being there. You are always playing a number of roles, and it keeps you humbled, it keeps you focused, and I will say it gives you a very different perspective. There's absolutely a reason, and I'll get to this in a moment when I discuss, I had the luxury of meeting and spending a fair amount of time with Justice Sotomayor when she was in Houston. There is absolutely a reason why most women that are at the top don't have children, because I would lie to you if I were to tell you it's anything but incredibly difficult. And I get the women that decide we can't do it all. And I'll talk about that in a minute, because you can't have a talk on women's issues without Professor Slaughter's article, which I have not read. If you have not read it, I absolutely advocate. I'll come back to it in a minute. Let's talk about Carmen. And I'm sorry, I'm going to get my water. I should have brought it with me.